Awesome. So, firstly, thank you again for joining me on this. It's one of really the first episodes of the Thoughts Experiment. And you are literally, I think you are it's in the top 3 of people that I mentioned on my list. I've got a list of people, and I'm like, I have to talk to Phila, because I think we've spoken on various occasions on each other's posts and whatever else, and some of the ideas we actually don't agree on, which is actually some of the things I want to get to. But definitely, you are really one of the people I really find very, very interesting. Like I find like I'm actually looking at your career. One of the things that actually annoy me about you is that you don't post enough.
Yeah. No, there are reasons. We'll get into that, but yeah. It's intentional. I of course, I appreciate it, but yeah, man, I love your work, and I'm watching every day from afar and close as well. Just watching what you're posting. Man, enjoy it. I love it. I love to see it, and I think you're killing it too. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much. So I think let's get to it. The first question I have for you, and I think this will really bring us into some context, because what I'd like to do is basically tackle some core ideas, and then just really have a bit of a deep dive in terms of them. Let's start here. I'm with you in high school. Who is Phila?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you with me in high school? Yeah, man. Yes, sir. So Phila is a very very strange character, in the sense that I kept to myself in terms of my personal life quite a lot, because at the time things at home were very, very tough for me. So I had a very secretive side, so I had to keep a lot of things sheltered from the public. So in that sense, I think I was a very distant kind of character. But personality, I'm naturally, I'm very extroverted. So in class, I'm talkative. I'm very loud in that sense. Enjoyed making jokes, but yeah. So I had this very weird vibe about me, I would say, because of everything that was going on in my head that I was kind of dealing through. From a academic point of view, very seemingly uninterested character in that side of things, very uninterested, not someone who applied themselves enough, and so as a result, very poor in that academic side of things. And Nakona, it's also informed by the fact that I was very much into soccer at the time, so more interested in the results from the weekend than what's going on in maths and accounting. You know what I mean? So but I think I always came alive, when it came to the English class. For some reason, that was a subject that I could just connect with and relate to and enjoyed. I really enjoyed it. So that was I would say the long and short of who I was in that high school context.
Cool. And then let's talk TEDx.
A couple of years later.
This was like what, 3 or 4 years later?
After high school, maybe, it's actually a lot, maybe 4 years later.
Cool. How did we get there? So how do we go from this person who's seemingly disinterested to now this person who's standing on stages and sharing some really interesting ideas?
So for me to explain the TEDx situation, I would have to take you through who I became in varsity.
Okay.
Right. So I told you who I was in high school. Now, how high school ends is again, because of how I failed to apply myself, it ends with a set of very average results, right? So, so for me at the time, you must remember the academic side of things, and it's something I realized late. I tried to push in the matric year, but they just didn't come together as I became familiar as to what the academics tend to work that way. Everything builds up. You can't have one final push and think it's gonna come together. It's too much. Your process hasn't run enough runway for you to then take off, right? So I leave high school with a very average set of results. All right. What does that do? That does the following, because as I told you, Dekaya, I was going through a lot, not getting along with my dad and all of that. So now that shock was very important for me, because it really made me go, okay, we nearly messed up here. We nearly messed up. And for me, that wasn't just a matter of, okay, staying at home, because staying at home was going to be hell, right? I was trying to get out, just from this environment. I just need to get out. So that was part one. But part two was, again, that, wow, it's real, all those years of not applying yourself almost ended really badly. My results were just good enough that I could salvage something out of it. So Phila then gets to varsity, and my main thought in that year was, okay, I've been told this is a very big step up from high school, right? All right, what does that mean? That means, Chief, for you who just posted a very average set of results, that means you're in danger to mess this up. You're in danger to go back. So at that point, I'm not going back there. That was just it. So I have to figure this out. So I do a hectic change. I almost from week one of varsity, I just was like, my books are going to be it for me, because I'm staying here. I'm not going back there, So that level of dedication that I then applied in that year changed everything, because I became all of a sudden a completely different person. Because now the results are coming in, the distinctions are coming in, and I'm going, okay, what is this? Now I have to dive deeper. What does this mean? Who am I? Am I now an A student? What does this mean? So in that process and asking those questions, I really start to find answers. Okay, it's actually possible to change things. It's possible to do things at a very high level. And for me, you know how it was at high school, you always thought, those kids are gifted. I can never do that. And then all of a sudden you do it in a space of a couple of months. I went from dead average to top of the class, So now I have to go, what else is possible, And then I start exploring those questions and those ideas, and that leads to a very different existence, because other things begin to happen. Okay, golden keys start happening. Okay, wow, those landmarks are crucial, because it's like a pin that you put in your life and you go, wow, I did that. That's a fact that happened. Okay. The next year you begin to ask more questions. What can I do next? What can I do now? Other things start happening, companies that you never thought of. Now I'm signed to PwC and all these things, and you're going, how is this happening? You understand? And so everything is leading up to that TEDx, because I'm going back and back and back, and I'm going, okay, one, what would I have been able to achieve if I knew this earlier, right? Okay. How did what was going at home hinder me from doing this? Because that's another big factor. At varsity, I could build my surroundings. I could build my energy. I could choose who to associate with and not to associate with. You understand? I could really orchestrate my experience. At home, I couldn't. I found that was a big part of it, because at home, okay, I do what I do at school, but I get home and I lose control. You understand?
Yeah.
So So then that became very interesting to me, that idea of environment and you know how it is with you are your environment, or all those type of ideas. I start seeing them in action to now say, yo, now what it led to is to say, okay, now I'm thinking about most Black children and the things that we usually have to deal with, whether uhlale or in the rurals, or because most of our stories are very parallel, right? You know, there's high unemployment. It mainly hits us Black folks. Okay, cool. What does that mean then for the father that's unemployed? Okay, he's more likely to be a drunkard because he feels hopeless. But what then happens in the household? Oh, okay, he's more likely to be abusive, or whether emotionally or physically, to his family. These are stories that I went through and I could relate to. So now, though, it got me thinking to everyone around me. You understand? Because, okay, because in my mind, I'm going, there's nothing special about me. If I can do this, you can. But how do you then ignite that out of somebody? I know what ignited it for me. It was just the mere ambition and relentlessness to stay out of home. And in this case, going to university was the perfect platform to do this. You understand? But that's the only motivation I needed. And so I really started exploring that idea. And it led me to do even other things in varsity. I started, you know, eventually became the chairperson of the Tech Society, all in this pursuit of going, let me see what else I can do. But number two, let me represent us. Let me try represent us. Let me try be that guy so that someone else can go, if that guy who looks like me, comes from where I come from,
100%,
talks like me, all these things, can do that, can it then spark change in other people? So I really started exploring that idea. And in that duty as the chairperson of the Tech Society, and in my own pursuits and the people I met throughout that time, I eventually founded this little informal mentoring initiative, let me call it, right? So where we would meet up and basically let's just discuss methods and strategies into the things I just spoke about. How to create an enabling environment for yourself. What do you read? What do you do? How do you just go about your life? And in those dialogues and those interactions with that group at the time, which eventually even comprised of one high school kid that I met on the How train, you know, varsity students mostly, so my peers. I then built this idea network of peer mentorship, because that's what we were doing, right? We were mentoring each other. We were bettering each other. Hey, man, how do you do that? Hey, man, how did you go from this to 6 distinctions, 8 distinctions? Hey, man, how do you do this? How do you do that? So these are things that I started exploring. And that literally leads to TEDx, because my idea in TEDx was, you know, around peer mentorship, you know, me, we, you know, that idea of me and how do I relate to the we, and how does one individual influence a collective, you understand? And from where we came from, or most of us come from, where there's a lack of role models, like I said, you know, for me, my father unfortunately couldn't be that. So where do you get that from? Because it's very nice and easy to say, get mentors, get where? From where? From where? Where do you get them? You understand? So it's very easy to say that. And I found, you know what? You don't need these accomplished individuals, because one, access to them is a problem. But number two, the practicality of it is also tough. So in changing your life or changing any kind of thing, whether it's going to the gym, trying to lose weight or gain some muscle, consistency is important. So it's very important for you to build a network of individuals around you who can influence you daily. Not a mentor who's a CEO but can only meet you once a year. That's not going to do you any good. 100%. So I explored that idea to say, how can we use what's around us? Just that kid, it could be that kid, Ekasi, who's just doesn't do what the others do. He doesn't hang in the corner, doesn't do that. Chill with that guy, find out what's going on in his head and influence each other. So that's really how TEDx comes to be, from all of those initiatives and my personal transformation in those 4 years. So yeah, that's really how that happened.
That's interesting. That's really, really interesting. So as you're speaking, you actually mentioned something that I was hoping to only touch on later, but the idea of identity.
Yeah.
But I want to touch it from two angles. And firstly, it's going to relate to the guy behind you, the picture behind you.
Yeah.
The
goat.
Indeed. So with you, and it's one of the things that I picked up, and I was like, okay, that would be interesting to actually ask you about, is you seem to have a deep connection to the leaders that came before you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why is that? Where does that come from? Because clearly it's not from your environment.
Yeah. So for me, I think it's because, Nje, when I try and make any kind of decision, I try to be as informed as possible. So the leaders that came before, or what, actually not even the leaders, just the history, the immediate history that came before, and the context of it and how it influences the present, is something that I'm very interested in, just from a decision-making point of view. That's all, right? Now, the leaders or the best among you or of that time are usually, individuals who can articulate whatever they stood for the best, right? Because they would have gone through a certain set of experiences and would have, by the mere fact of being a leader, would have operated at a high level. So I always try to study those individuals to gain the best possible perspective, so I can inform myself of why I am who I am. You understand? Yeah. So I think that's, it's really a personality thing of my process of decision making. I try to really understand context, and history is a very good place, the immediate history, to say, how did that turn into this? Oh, now that we're here, therefore, do I go left or do I go right? So I always like to act with intense precision, and that requires a clarity of thought to do. You have to be very clear, so that I have to be able to see a decision in multiple dimensions and angles in order for me to operate in the way that I like to do, which is one of very, intense focus and precision, and just, I don't doubt usually once I make a decision. So I rather spend some time studying in order for me to move forward. But there's another reason why I like to be informed, and by my leaders especially, and what came before, because again, that's another source of what's possible, right? Yes. That's another source of what's possible. And so to see, and especially with our tough and hard past, what an individual or a group of individuals can create when they have focus, passion, and just ambition, it's the fuel that I need. Because again, remember, I had to try and get inspiration and ambition outside. I didn't really grow up in a situation where that was force-fed to me. So that habit is also important for me to keep going and keep striving for things that I might not even know are possible. You understand? Yeah. Those, because I can think back and go, if some guy can do 25 years for 27 years for people he doesn't even know, and have this very deep affection and love, and influence the whole world to think in a certain way for generations to come, damn, all of a sudden when you look at a goal of saying to become a CEO, it's very possible and very doable and very minute, to be honest. So that I find also helps me just in my ambitious endeavors, really. Yeah.
That's interesting. Like for me, I think I also hold, especially the people that came before me, very in high regard. And the way that I've been able to conceptualize it is, when you're going through adolescence, you try to figure out who you are apart from your parents, separated from your parents, but when you begin to get out of adolescence, you begin to realize that a lot of who you are is a continuation of who they were.
Oof.
And so there's a lot of expectation on top of you by mere virtue of the fact that if things didn't go the way they should have gone in the previous generation, there's this thing that Tim Grover says that it shakes me to the core consistent. It's like, it may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. You understand? So for me, that is where a huge sense of responsibility for our generation comes in. Like, I think you have an instance of a lot of blame on the previous generation. Whereas for me, I'm like, I think they did what they could, and they were not perfect because they were human. You understand? Now, don't go and outsource your battles of this generation to them and say, had they fought this battle, we would not need to fight it. You're like, no, this is the battle of your generation, and it might not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. You are not separated from that.
Yep.
You understand? So for me, that sense was, it's been massive, and I think this is where I gravitate a lot to, and I think we'll now pivot to this guy now, Jocko Willink and people like Jordan Peterson, where they talk about the idea of responsibility, taking full ownership of the outcomes in our lives, because I mean, so much as that has happened isn't your fault, but you can't do anything about it.
Right.
So I think I did a video on this a while back, and I said, there's no point in being right, and yet it doesn't serve you. Of course, you're a person of color, and the odds are stacked against you. Nothing about that is going to change in all likelihood in your lifetime. In other words, that is just the field you just have to play in.
Fact.
You understand? So there's no point in arguing. Like, you can, I basically conceptualize it as, there's no point in being right and it doesn't matter. And I think a lot of our arguments are basically that. It's like, yeah, you're right, but it doesn't matter. Exactly. And I think here's where I think I differ a bit with some of our current leaders, where they think our generation is entitled. I think, okay, there's an element of truth with that, but I think we aren't properly equipped to actually take responsibility. I mean, we are a generation of a failed parenting test. We are the generation that basically came about, and you got a certificate for just showing up. So it's like, you didn't have to do anything at all. Like, the fact that you were there, whether you played any of the games or not, you get a participation trophy. And I mean, the jury is already out on this. It doesn't work, and if anything, it has negative impact, especially when you now get into the real world and you now actually need to take ownership of your career specifically. Like, because I think in terms of this conversation, but it spills over to the rest of your life, because you see it all the time. Like, people that are complaining about the state of the economy are the same people being influenced by it.
Right.
So, so it's like, you're right, but it doesn't really matter. So with you, and I think you touched on this, but what is it about taking ownership, and where does that come from? Because you talk about, you leave varsity and you're like, I need to make this happen. But was it sort of like a realization with, I mean, parents are what they are. Is it something where you perhaps looked at your dad, or you looked at your family like, clearly no one is coming to save me? I'm going to have to figure this out. Like, where did that actually come from? Like, where did that full ownership of, I think, the outcome of your life actually come from?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think for me now, specifically, really my family situation, right? And it came actually, I'd say, way before me leaving high school. I think that was just a different application of what I already had.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, I think you said it right when you said, no one's coming. I realized no one's coming very early on. I would say maybe nine-ish, to be honest, because I was very clearly, and it was really pointed at my immediate family. I would say not even immediate, but my extended family to a certain extent. So I'll give you an example. So let's say for argument's sake, you are the last born of 3 kids, which I was, very big gap, and you're living in a family environment that it's very clearly not conducive, right, for raising a child, right, or for whatever reason it is, and it's very evident, right, like it's common knowledge, but yet I realized very quickly that no one's coming to make this better for you. Change this. Nobody's coming to. This is just getting worse and worse, and so one, you have to figure out a way to deal with it, because you go to, and I was in a government school, very 40 class with 4 classes per grade, and you know how kids are. So it started out as a survival type of technique, how kids are. Like, let's say, for example, we didn't have much, growing up. So things like, for example, your shoes must last the whole year. You wearing school uniform from PEP, doesn't have the badge, that badge from school, and all those type of things. You have to figure out a way to survive through that, whether it's through jokes, whether it's through knowing how to fight if people are teasing you too much, all those things. But that speaks to taking responsibility. There's no mommy and daddy to run home to, because they're not coming to fight this fight, So I learned very quickly how to navigate through those things. And I think other things, it probably is just God-given and personality given, where I knew how to read situations and navigate without, people even noticing what's happening. So I always took ownership, extreme ownership, as you mentioned with Joko there, of my situation and of my emotions. And I just found ways to guide them, to shield them. At times, obviously, in my youth, especially, you can't hide. You think you're hiding it, but it's just very obvious. But to an educated eye, especially. But I found that out very quickly. So when you're talking about then metric and all those things, that was just an extreme application of that, to say, right, we are going to figure this out, and especially because it's something where you had already conditioned yourself to think, I'm not smart, this, you have to be this to get marks like this and all these things. So that was just an extreme ownership, and born also out of, that desperation, necessity to make it happen. So that's really where it comes from for me. It just comes from a painful place and a willingness to change, remedy that, and have it never reappear again. And once I figured it out, it started spilling over everywhere, where I would not allow myself not to take extreme ownership of anything. Everything's my fault because no one's coming.
That's amazing. I think, with all of what you've achieved so far, you'll feel like I haven't done much, I'm still on my way there and whatever else. But even if you achieved nothing and this is where your career ended, if you were to have a family, clearly your family life is going to be a lot better than what you grew up in. Like, it's just, it's obvious, So have you thought about how then would you then create that sense of ownership in your kids outside of that struggle?
I think I think being where I am and not having any kids yet, it's hard to go into much detail on that. But what I can say and what I've found, I've always tried to think of, okay, if it were me, what would have helped me, right? That's a good place to start.
100%, yeah.
And I think the first thing is to just really model that for real, which, so it's just a continuation on the pressure for me to say, once that responsibility comes, I need to continue to really model what I wish to instill on them.
Yeah.
And then the trick is to just communicate however best. Obviously, this will be fine-tuned as the situation presents itself as you become a father, and you also learn what, you know, this tiny human being of yours, how they consume information. But I think the principle is very clear that you then have to communicate that to them and say, this is what this does, this is what this means, here's how daddy does it. You know, now it's up to you. Let me give you all the tools for you to take this in and embody that. So and a note as well, even on my family situation, as I grew older, it also needs maturity, because there are certain elements that were also outside of their control that made the situation what it was. You understand? Again, that's why the context matters, because and that's why studying also matters. Oh, if you're going through this and have to do this and start working at 14, how would you look like at 24 when you have a kid? You understand what I'm saying? And so understanding all those things, and it's also just about understanding my environment to say, okay, cool, here's the environment I would like to create because of X, Y, and Z. And I think these are the best ways to do it. And also being flexible, as I said, I think it's really important, because one of the things that some of our parents didn't do is not enough flexibility. You know, you try to give your kids a different life than what you had, but you want to parent them the same way you were parented. It doesn't work, you understand? So you have to have that flexibility in you. So yeah, for me, I would like to think I'll create a different environment, and if I'm tough on myself as well, to remain flexible and understand it's not about me, but passing on those principles, then I think I'll be fine. But yeah, I really hope I if nothing else, succeed in that part of things.
No, I think coming from someone who's already a father, one of the things, I think it was probably like to the middle of last year, where the common idea is you want to teach your kids the things you wish you knew. And I held that. I think, I can't remember which book I had read. It could have been 12 Rules for Life. I could be mistaken. And after reading that book, it was 12 Rules for Life. I was like, no, I don't want to teach my kids the things I wish I knew, because I'm assuming the context is going to be the same for them. What I want to teach my kids is how to actually navigate life themselves. So be able to actually take in, because Tom Billy says this, and it's really good. The human beings are the ultimate adaptation machine. So that is the thing that you perhaps then want to actually optimize in your kids, like the ability to take in new information. I mean, when our parents were growing up, the main thing is like, you know what, become a CA. Like if you become a CA, you'll be fine. You know,
you'll be fine.
But this is happening at literally the same time where companies like Facebook are coming up, data analytics and whatever else are coming in, where it's like, well, that may have been true at a specific time, but the world has actually shifted. And if you have remained stagnated on this idea that you were given, this information that your parents wish they had when they were your age and they would have followed that career, if you followed that, you would have been relatively fine, but the market isn't what it used to be, and the world has shifted to something else. But if you don't know how to actually then take in additional stimuli, additional information, and say, that was true. You know, there's this biblical idea, I page through the Bible every now and then. I think it's the Apostle Peter who talks about being established in the present truth.
Yes.
Understand? So it's like, it's not like, you know, it's not like our parents misled us. No, when they said education is key to success and whatever. No, that was a present truth. What you then need to look at is the idea that perhaps that is a former truth. Then what is true now? I mean, they could have never predicted cryptocurrency. They could have never predicted NFTs. They could have never predicted data analytics, because they were also speaking based on their context.
Their truth,
You understand? So that is something, so for me, after actually looking at, I think it was after reading that book, I'm like, no, I think I would be better off, one, yes, teaching them that everything is your fault. That's one thing I also say, is like, what, and I say it all the time, even on LinkedIn, what doesn't happen in your career is your fault.
Yeah.
Because you can't blame your boss, because you don't need to stay in that in that company.
It's your fault.
Yeah, you're like, like we don't like saying that. Like, I speak to some people every now and then, and they'll talk about some of the grievances in their company. And then my next question is like, why don't you leave?
Yeah.
And it's like, you've just said some, some revelation from a higher power elsewhere. And you're like, how is this not obvious to you that you don't have to put up with this? But I think it's a lot easier to blame something else, and it's not your fault. It's my boss.
It's human nature. It's human nature.
Exactly. And for me, it's one of those things where even in the family, I always there's that hymn that says, "It's not my mother, it's not my father, it's not my sister, it's not my brother, it's me."
It's me.
And I say that to them all the time. I'm like, no, it's not COVID, it's not the economy, it's not this, it's not that, it's me. It's my fault. My life is the way that it is because of me. It's decisions I made, and I could have made different decisions that would have led to me doing something else and would have resulted in a different outcome. But often we don't want to do that, because then, it's easier to blame something else. It's easier to blame some external thing.
Because once you do that, you have to eat that. You have to sit there and engage that idea. It's my fault. Now what? The blame game stops. It has to stop. So it's easy to just, it's out there. It's my boss. It's COVID. It's everything.
State capture. It's everything. And the thing about it is, all of those things are true. But there are things that you, and this is where I think often when you have this conversation with people, it becomes very tricky, is that what they're saying is true, but what they're not willing to consider are those aspects and decisions they could have taken that would have lessened the impact that they would have had.
Correct.
You understand?
Correct.
So,
and even if you took all of the best possible actions and remedies to possibly lessen the blow, the fact is, it still is.
Exactly.
It still is.
Yeah.
That's the fact. It still is something you can't change. You can be the nicest person, but if that individual is also working just as hard to be very hostile towards you, it is.
Exactly. It is. And I mean, I actually had a similar conversation with a friend of mine who had been unemployed for a while, and their desire was to just work for a big four, one of the big four consulting firms. And they had been applying and applying and applying, just not getting in. And I said, have you considered that maybe you're just not good enough right now? And perhaps this is not there might be people who took one step and they were there. You might need to take 4.
Yes.
You might need to work through 4 companies before you get to this company.
Correct.
You understand? And they were not happy with that statement.
Of course. Because you have to understand what you just said. You just said they listened to you see your explanation of it's still possible, Baba. You might have to go through 4 moves. They said I'm not good enough. Why can't I just go through 1? No, I want 1. I want the express route. And that's cool to want it, but it's a fact. And I think though, what really depresses people is once you engage the idea of there's a perfect route. Actually there can be a perfect route and a very short route. Like you said, you can apply, just get into the big 4 and you're on your way. But life has no shortage of examples of other ways of doing things and other
Exactly.
routes.
Yeah.
You understand?
Mm.
It could be a shock, especially to people who want to plan things in advance and things, and who enjoy things panning out exactly how they plan them.
Yeah.
I find those are the individuals who really struggle
Exactly.
with accepting these things. And
Yeah.
auditors are prime examples, because typically if you're good at accounting and those type of disciplines, you would be like a type A, or they call blue and green
Yeah.
type of
Yeah.
brain or decision-making process people. They cannot handle the reroutes. What?
Yeah.
No, I planned this. They plan everything. They plan what they're gonna wear tomorrow. So it's very tough for them
Yeah.
to handle that. No, I'm gonna have to go train at a small moms and pops accounting shop, and then try to reroute from there. You understand?
Yeah.
But again, what would help them is understanding yourself. Oh, this is why I'm feeling so down and beat up by this situation.
Yeah.
You understand? And just then go from there. And if it suits you, plan another route that's going to give you some joy, and try hit those kind of milestones. But yeah, man, that unfortunately, that's what people hear. It just cuts off there. I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
That's it. Why am I not good enough? And that's a tough question then to answer, because going back to your point, it's easier to then blame other people. No, the people who get in, no people there, just because my mom doesn't work for EY, KPMG, blah, 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 PwC, I don't get in. I know this one, their auntie works there, that's why they got in. Yeah, cool. Those things might be true. But, you know, for me, I just find nothing more calming than taking responsibility and rerouting.
100%. I mean, in your case, I mean, right now you're at BCX.
No, I'm at Altron now. I left BCX last year.
Oh, okay. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This makes it even better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't even update your LinkedIn. You can't even keep up anymore. So you're at Altron, you know, and you know, I mean, it's growing, you know, I mean, it's in the news every few months. Everybody knows what they are doing. It's really, you know, actually my question doesn't change at all. You didn't start here.
Yeah.
So let's reverse engineer how you arrived here.
Sure. Wow. Yeah, no. So so the biggest thing for me, again, I studied accounting. So very, very different world that I now find myself in than what I was doing in varsity. But one thing I did very well is, well, actually, I started feeling very disconnected while I was studying, you know, to my general student population, because there was something that just didn't make sense to me and didn't quite excite me like it seemed to excite others around me, you know. The first thing, and what I always advise against, which I call a very big danger in the university context especially, is that people accept truths that they don't even understand, right? They just accept it. This is what I'm striving towards. If you ask someone, why do you want to work for a Big Four? You need to be able to answer that question, because you are saying this is top of your priority list. You understand? You're not partying, you're not doing all these things, you're studying this very challenging degree. Why? You cannot not be able to answer that question. You can't. You understand? And so I found that everyone, well, a lot of people couldn't, and everyone gave very generic answers. So I had to then ask myself, why do I want to do this? Why? You know? And in search of that answer, I was lucky enough through my endeavors in the tax society, which was actually sponsored by a Big Four company. I would then get exposed to a lot of these guys who are in those environments and are killing it, you know, the best of the best, you understand, partners that are there, which is the top of the food chain. And my question was simply, what do you do? Take me through your day. What do you do? Like, what do you do? Who do you interact with? Why do you do it? Take me through the entire thing. And in those investigations, unfortunately, it got more and more painful before it got better, because I also started realizing that my personality fit is not the best for the path that I'm actually on. And I was lucky enough though to find individuals who would advise me, and I really want to give this advice or relay it. Possibly the best piece of advice I got, especially when we are talking about the impact that it had in my life in a time where I was really trying to figure it out again. You know, he said, look, you are young, you are very young. The first thing you have to do is you have to be honest with yourself and understand who you are and what you like and what you want, but don't be afraid to experiment. Go out there, even if you mess up for 5 years, 7 years, you'd still be so young. You understand? Work for different companies and different industries if that's what you need to do. Play around, you know, do whatever you feel is right to get to a point where you know what is it that you want and how you can get there. You need to get to that point if you want to do it at the highest level, because that was always my thing, right? I was just, how do I get to partner? I didn't care about working at a Big Four. Partner, I want to go to partner, you understand? So then you begin to understand that, my man, every year there's hundreds, if not thousands of graduates entering that space, thousands, definitely. You can count the partners because all these firms have a select few partners, you understand? And there's only a select few also that can make it to that level. You have to ask yourself why, you understand? And this guy, you understand? You have to. So once I understood that nothing good can come, or you can't do something at the highest level if you're not fully tapped into it. 100%. So I best then find what it is that I'm looking for. Anyway, we fast forward to my journey starts at a multinational startup company. At the time, I was very into like seminars, going to seminars. Remember when that movie Wolf of Wall Street came to town? So watch Wolf of Wall Street. The guy Jordan Belfort went on an international tour doing speeches. And I was very just intrigued naturally about that lifestyle, that personality. I was like, oh, I'm drawn to this type of thing, you know? And I went to go see him live.
Oh, that's cool.
And at I think it was Empress Palace. Very, very cool experience. And so I was, again, just really trying to tap into myself. And I was like, oh, the sales type of thing seems really cool for me. And I just came across this company that really seemed to say all the right things in that way. Multinational IT company looking for young, vibrant individuals in the sales space. I'm like, let's go. Let me give this a crack, you know? So I just went in blind, and I was just like, do something that's exciting, that makes you feel good. And I wasn't wrong, you know, because I went in there, and obviously you learn a lot from the beginning. So went in there, got very, very good experience, very good set of experience, the good and the bad, you know, even from a culture point of view. That was the really tough thing that ended up pushing me out or necessitating my exit. But, you know, very, very great grounding. I got exactly what I needed, very energetic environment, energetic individuals that I learned a lot from. So that's where I start. My journey for about 2 years, you know, and I'm just going at it, man. I'm having fun, making very little money. I'm just having fun, man. You understand? And then though it gets to a point, and a lot of Black professionals face this a lot in the corporate sector. Again, what helps you deal with it, or at least helps me deal with it, is understanding the context and where we come from and all these things. You understand why it is. So it was an all-white type of environment. Was the first recruit in the Black recruit in Johannesburg. So I really struggled. I really struggled eventually culturally to reconcile. Okay, who am I? Who am I trying to become? You know, it was really a cultural mess, you know, internally, because I was trying to marry this ambition with what I'm feeling inside, this feeling of alienation. So I had to go. So I listened to that calling, and actually, funny enough, you know, I would not advise it, but I was so tapped into myself and ready to just go to any lengths to stay true to myself. I actually quit without even securing PCX. PCX became my next job. Came back from the holidays around this time, actually, January 15, 16, I think it was. Random day at the office, sent through my resignation. That's it. We're gonna figure it out. That's it. I'm out. This is not it. I'm out. You know, I'm out. And so yeah, that was an interesting time. That was a very interesting. When I told my friends, they all thought I was crazy. But again, the way I make decisions, as I said earlier, I always have to be tapped in. When I'm staying, I know why I'm staying, even when it's painful. It's not to say that when it's painful, you don't stay, but you know, this makes sense, you know? And at the time, also putting into context that I'm 23, 24, that was too much for me. I can admit that, you know, now maybe I'll be able to sift through and say, the opportunities there, we're going to stay for that. We can stomach this. I would have been equipped more emotionally. At the time, it was breaking me. It was absolutely breaking me. And I had to say, this does not make sense anymore. Out. But it allowed me, I think, to really be tapped in. And this is what I always advise people or say to people as well. I'm saying PCX wouldn't have happened as well as it did if I wasn't so tapped in. Because from the interview stage, I knew from when I made that decision, between that and financial ruin, which I was prepared for, I was prepared to go home. I was like, fine, but I'll come back. But I knew if I'm gonna get one shot, I'm gonna have to take it. BCX interview came. There was no way I wasn't getting that. There was just no way. I was gonna destroy everyone to get that. I was so tapped in when I tapped. So I was tapped in there. You understand? So that happens. It was actually a cool little leadership program that the CEO was trying out. So yeah, a lot of interesting individuals there. We had a lot of challenges, blah, 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 you know, very different interview process, but I was tapped in. Anyway, long story short, I make it through. They choose about 6 of us or 7 of us. I make it through there.
Of how many?
Then from there, 7. Yeah, 7 of us. I can't remember, but yeah, they flew people in from all over the country. Those who they made us do tests and stuff, and then we got to the building here and we just battled it out for about 2 days. So it was very cool. Went through that, but I kept that energy. I never forgot what just happened immediately before that. You know, and I was so proud of how I handled that as well, to just go, you are willing to really stick by your guns, even if you are facing financial ruin, you know what I mean? But you're willing to do it. And so what I then did, I took that and I transferred it and said, stick to your guns, but now you're not in survival mode, even if it's, especially when it's shooting for the stars. Go at it with the same intensity as when your back is against the wall. Because I found out I'm very good when my back is against the wall. But now I try to push myself to almost create a back against the wall survival mentality, even when it's not. That means basically, you know, just you going for that number 1 spot from number 2, go at it with the same ferocity as when you are trying to fight essentially a death type of situation. So that's the energy I came into BCX with. And again, it really worked out for me, man, because I brought an undeniable level of energy and relentlessness that they just couldn't ignore, you know, and it led to a lot of opportunities. A lot of great people there took me under their wing, directed me the right way, and it was just up to me to keep firing. And I'd like to think I really did my best and a good job of doing that. So did that, and I was there for 3 years. But again, back to what I just said now, to get to where I want to get to, I realized that I have to keep being honest with myself and challenge myself. So I then had to ask myself, okay, with everything that I've achieved here, are you happy? Okay, yes, I'm happy with everything that I've achieved. Really good showing. All right, cool. but do you want to stay? What's the best move? Do you want a new challenge? And for me, the best thing to do, or that I felt was the right thing to do, and I know it was for a new challenge. I needed to get out of my comfort zone again, especially because I was so comfortable there. You know, you loved by everybody, you know, from literally the canteen to the CEO, you know, you are comfortable. So now, is this what it means to you? Is this what we are trying to maintain? And I was like, nah, you know, if I'm going to again get to where I want to get to, there's a lot more I need to do, and this comfort might be very detrimental to me. So I moved really to disrupt myself. And it was a challenge to myself as well to go somewhere and start over again. Do this again. And even if you fail, it's fine. I needed to show myself that even after doing so well, I can still handle being a beginner. So that's really why I had to move. And lucky for me, I moved to another amazing organization, you know, with a great challenge ahead of me as well. So that's really my career up to this far. You know, it's my third company. Altron's my third company, and really great journey so far for me.
I really like the idea of what you just mentioned, staying true to yourself. I think the way that I've conceptualized it is, and actually I think I posted this on could have been LinkedIn. I said, you know, say no when you know that no is actually what you want to say. You know, there are instances where you feel like I should say no, but for whatever reason, perhaps it's the environment, perhaps it's the company culture, you feel like perhaps saying no is the wrong thing, even though it's exactly what you want to say. You know, and what I've actually come to realize is the more often you actually ignore that, the weaker it makes you.
Yes.
You can actually feel yourself becoming weaker.
Yes.
You know, I remember, I think it was last year. I talk about this a lot because I talk about my feelings as well. There's a company that I joined last year for about 3 months. And I was there a week and I knew this wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's no shame in that. That's another thing. Like, people act like, oh my God, no, this is part of the journey. This is how you need to play it. You need to be honest, Chief. You need to be extremely honest.
Exactly. You know, so for me, I looked at that. I realized this when the missus actually asked me, and she's like, how was the first week? And you know, and she was asking me, she's like, do you feel like you actually made the right decision? And I said, I don't know, you know, and this was a weekend. This was after 1 weekend. And I'm like, I'm not sure. And I get very iffy as soon as I'm no longer sure about a thing. You know, I generally take a step or two back, and I'm like, okay, why are we no longer sure about this? You know, and what made us sure before? You know, and so I began to actually decipher that, and I realized that the longer I stayed, this was not working. You know, like you could just, like, there's nothing wrong with the company itself. Like, honestly speaking, it's a really good company. The CEO is great, you know, the directors are great and whatever else. It's a very small company. There's nothing wrong with the company itself. You know, it was more a thing of, it's just not for me. You know, and I couldn't reconcile that, you know, because you hear people that have just almost doubled your salary from the previous company, you know, and when I actually began to look at this, I'm like, this is not tenable. I can't do this, actually. That's when I actually realized that the major driver for this was the money. You know, and when I realized that, I'm like, okay, listen, I like this money, but it's not worth this. You know, and I think that is actually a very important thing. Like, I think if you come from a family that doesn't have a lot of money, you think you would do almost anything for it. you know,
Yeah.
until you have to do almost everything for it.
And then you go,
you're like,
no,
not
this
a
is
task.
taxing.
Yeah.
This is taxing. Yeah. No, it's not easy.
You know,
and you're right. I can imagine, Nakon, it was so hard for you to reconcile that, Njoguti. Hey, my man, I come from where I come from.
Yeah.
We didn't have much of this. What do you mean you don't want this now because we're now you don't feel nice inside? That's also tough because you're going, what is wrong with you? You feel all kinds of things, man. Because, and it's a fact, it's like an opportunity people would give their arm for. But here you are going, I feel like this is not it. That's also something you have to address.
Exactly. You know, so I actually started thinking about that. I'm like, okay, how did we get here? And how did we make this mistake? You know, and I realized that, and so my thinking then became, okay, and this is actually a question I want to ask you not too long after this, actually. How do I then separate finances from my career decisions? You understand? So I began to think about that, you know, and so because the company I had left, I didn't leave on bad terms. Like, I don't believe in leaving in bad terms. Like, especially if you're not on. I mean, it's a very small world. You know, you know, it's a very, very, very small world. You know, and so I reached out to my then boss. Well, actually, my boss's boss. I didn't know that she had now moved up to CEO. Yeah, I'm just reaching out because I've got her number. I'm like, oh, listen, things are not really going the way I thought. Can we talk about potentially me coming back? You know, and then we had that conversation and we sat down and, you know, I mean, obviously they want to iron out some of their own things. Why do you want to come back? What made you leave to begin with? And whatever, you know, and all of that. But we spoke about all of those other things. And then eventually I'm like, okay, listen, this is where I'm at in my career. These are my plans. If you can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for me, I think at the very least, the medium term of my career should be sorted, unless some opportunity comes up that is absolutely out of this world.
That is crazy. Yeah.
Like, you like, I mean, even you would, like, you know, you would understand too, you know. So we came, exactly, you know, so we came to a bit of a consensus. It was like, okay, then let's, you know, we came to an agreement. We're like, okay, going forward, then let's do it this way. You know, before you actually sign anything, let's actually sit down. Let's actually talk this through.
Yes,
you know,
that's very good.
You know, and I'm like, okay, that's fair. You know, that's a fair thing. You know, but it's still a thing I struggle with, especially if you're a person coming from a family that, you know, I don't come from a poor family. Both my parents are teachers. You know, I think it's Dave Chappelle who puts it perfectly. He's like, you know, my parents made just enough money so that we could live poor amongst white people.
Only the real will understand that. Yeah.
You understand? So it's not like we are poor within, like, in absolute terms of poverty line. It's like, you know, in proportion to the environment you grew up in, you were definitely poor. You know, so and realizing that, I think, and you'll tell me about this. I think I'll just compress it into that conversation, as I think we're going to close now. You know, when you grow up poor amongst other poor people, poor almost feels normal.
Facts.
You know, but when you grow up poor amongst people that aren't poor, you know, it sticks out like a sore thumb.
Painful.
You know, and I'm still actually working out how much of growing up in that environment has actually influenced me. You know, but one of the things that it has done for me is I actually talk openly about money. You know, like, for me, money is not this thing that should never be spoken about. It's not greed, trying to get it and whatever else, you know. But I also see, and having been through having had my fingers burned, how it can blind your decision making.
Yeah, correct.
You know, so in your context, one, how has the pursuit of finances influenced you? And how do you actually separate that? Like, how do you separate, I mean, you stayed at BCX, you said like 2 or 3 years. Surely there were other opportunities that came about and you just like, no. that were
Yeah.
offering insane amounts. So
Yeah.
how do you separate that in your decision making?
I won't give you an absolute formula, Mara. I'll come close to it. And I think it's very tied to, actually, here's where I start. One, I'm very clear of where I want to go. Very, very clear of what I want out of my career. I think that's the first thing. Right?
Yeah.
If money is what you want and that's it, okay, cool. Then obviously, then it's very simple because you only have one variable.
Yeah.
If someone's paying you R1 more, you're on.
You're gone.
Because that's what you're looking for. You understand?
Yeah.
So for me, I literally try to look at the trade-offs because, like you said, I've also become very honest in the beginning. Money really played a small part. I was just very focused on is it the right move? Am I learning? Am I growing? And I think that's the right approach for that time. I'm very honest about the times because context is everything.
Yeah.
If you're 22 or 21 and you care more about the money you're making versus how much you're learning, it's gonna bite you. If your pursuit is also tied to a significant level on where you want to get to, right? Because once you understand corporate or even just life in general, I sometimes speak in soccer terms, there are ceilings that you start to see appear, and it's not always immediately visible when you're 20. You just think, I'm gonna then move up 5 years here, then become a manager, 10 years, then do this. It doesn't work like that. There are people who can't make certain jumps anymore, ever. There are some people who cannot make it to partner or CEO or whatever.
Yeah.
So again, I was very intentional of my pursuit is still more on my level of achievement and growth, whether it's in a corporate setting or my own business endeavor, but that will require me to gain certain skills. So that will always trump the money, the immediate money. But there are situations where, let's say, for example, I'm going, okay, I'm at this level now, right? I've attained, let's say, for example, you wanted to head up sales, right? Okay, let's say when I get to that level, I can go, for example, within my rights to go, you know what, for the next little bit, I've sacrificed for money and financial gain for a while. For the next little bit, I'm just going to cash in, right? And circumstances could have changed because, let's say, now I have 2.5 kids there, and I'm just going, you see, now I'm cashing in. I'm going to sort out this problem, this financial problem, or make sure that this doesn't become a financial problem. So I try to be very logical about where am I and what I can do. And what I've found, though, helps me because, again, I'm still at a build phase in my career. I'm still very much at a build phase, but although I'm more conscious of the financial side of things, I make sure that's taken care of now, because I also realized, which I didn't at the time, that the industry is also unforgiving. No one gives you what you are worth, right? You have to be extremely good at negotiating your situation. Otherwise, you're working so hard, but you're allowing people to take advantage of you. So I've also become very, 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 very cognizant of that. So I make sure that business is taken care of. I don't play like that anymore. I used to just allow it to be taken care of by the universe, but now I'm very active. So that's the one thing. I think that's really it, actually. The context. I make my decisions very much based on context and my immediate strategy for the foreseeable future. But what I did want to say is that what I feel helps me in allowing the money or the financial side of things not to blind me or misdirect me is that I try to make very smart financial decisions with whatever I have, right? Because what I mean by that is this. What I often find happens is money is especially misuse of money, and in the corporate sense, it can really make you lose control based on your misuse. If you get a job, they double your salary, but you run and you buy the fanciest car you can find now, and you go buy the fanciest house you can find, you've lost control because you've lost your ability to now negotiate and navigate as you would wish. So for me, because I know that's very important to me, I have to take care of business in that area. I have to take care of my money. I have to plan very well because I'm not giving up that control to anybody. So at this point, I haven't been in a situation where money has really dictated a move that I make. But I'm also cognizant of there's a little bit of luck involved where, I've had situations where, I was, whether I earned it or deserved it or not, but, I hadn't planned for it. It's one thing for me to come into the year and go, I want to hit this much, make this much money this year. I've had situations where that just happened for me, very lucky, compared to how my career has gone before, where everything I got, I really planned for, knew it was coming, and I executed again. So sometimes you have those lucky breaks, and it speaks to also your level of service and product. Because if you put out so much, you then create the opportunity of getting a call that offers you a really good job. You deserve it. Yes, you didn't plan for it and all those things. So that's what I'm speaking towards, to say in the sales environment at BCX, for example, I had good opportunities. I was trusted with a very good opportunity to say, this is a platinum account, one of our biggest, take care of it. I didn't plan for that. You understand what I'm saying? But because of the work that I had put in, it put me in a position where someone said, I think that kid can do it. You understand what I'm saying? So I've been very lucky. There's a mixture of luck, but in that receiving even of those blessings, I took care of them very well so that they don't influence me. To give you context is to say, even when I made the move to where I am now, I mean, I just come off of my best sales year from an earnings perspective by mile. You understand?
Yeah.
So, but I still made that decision, and it allowed me to make that decision because the money that I earned, I really respected. And I knew going to where I'm going, I'm going to have to build again. I'm not going to earn this much money, this much commission. It's not going to happen, not in my first year. So I use money as an enabler. I try not to let it use me. When I have it, when I earn it, when I cash in, because sometimes you cash in, I set myself up. I try not to enjoy it immediately. I try always to make it work for me, make it take care of things so that I don't have to be slave to having to now make a decision and be pressed to make a decision, because how am I going to pay rent, or how am I going to do this? I nearly stayed in an environment that was emotionally destroying me because of how am I going to pay rent? But I learned from that because now I'm always very cautious. You understand what I'm saying? So before I take on a certain financial responsibility, I have to cover it a couple of times so that if I need to make a swift move, I don't have to first decay and go into a depressive state, depression, but a depressive state before I'm forced to make that. So I just use money very well to plan for my moves, because I know myself as well. I will not tolerate not being true to myself. So that has helped me very much. That North Star, that very clear North Star and compass is very clear. So I don't have that problem at all.
That's interesting. I think for me, I think in the context of actually having a family, I think that's where for me, money really comes in. Like I once told a recruiter this, where they were offering me a role, but it was less than what I was making. And there's like, no, there's a lot of growth opportunities. And I'm like, I can't feed my family on growth opportunity.
Right.
You understand?
Can I come in on that? Because
Yeah.
you're very right. That's why I'm saying also in my progression, I've learned to become very, also
Yeah.
level-headed and straight. You have to be straight about that.
Yeah.
Take care of business for sure. You
100%.
understand? Because definitely you can't feed on love and and growth opportunity. You can't.
Yeah, exactly.
And just when you're looking at it from a business move, look at it as a businessman.
Yeah.
Why would I take on so much risk? You
Exactly.
understand? You're
Yeah.
taking on risk. There's
Yeah.
no point.
Yeah.
It has to make sense on a certain level.
Yes.
Don't entertain it if it's less than what you're getting.
Yeah.
Or if it just doesn't tick those boxes. You
Yeah.
have to take care of business, man, and especially when you don't need to.
Yeah.
You don't need to, and
Exactly.
and it might sound arrogant, but I always say this, that you need a healthy level of arrogance to do incredible things.
Yeah.
That especially when you know what you will bring. That's also another thing, because it's one thing. Let's say I'm in IT now. Let's say I'm moving to mining. It makes sense then. Okay, maybe I'll take a little bit of a cut. Then you can tell me about growth opportunity, because you're also shouldering some of the risk, right? Because I'm unproven in that space. And so that makes sense. But you can't ask me to take the whole portion of the risk, and you are coming in here. And for a fact, if the tables were turned, that wouldn't be reciprocated. The market, if you are out of a job for, let's say, 2 years, they will undercut you like crazy. All of them will, even if you are proven to have done certain things. So why would you respect an industry, or not even an industry, but why would you respect a process that for a fact would not reciprocate that energy towards you? It just
has no guarantee. And has no guarantee.
There's no guarantee.
You understand?
So be smart about it.
Yeah, 100%. I think for me, and actually, I really did spend a lot of time thinking about this. And one of the things that, and I think you mentioned it, and the idea of cashing out, it's similar to how a company basically builds itself up and then it's sold to a larger company. Right. And then the founders, essentially, they call that cashing out.
Cash out,
but they've built that framework,
right.
And one of the things that I've actually found interesting about careers that I think perhaps it also translates to building a company, but with careers, is that you actually can build a proper skill set and you can eventually cash out, properly cash out, and cash out multiple times, take on projects and whatever else. And I think that's one of the things that I've come to actually understand, having really thought about this ordeal, was the benefit I had was actually being good at what I do.
Yeah, correct.
So I could make a decision and within a week be able to say, okay, I'm leaving.
Correct. It wouldn't have been able to happen if you didn't have that skill set.
Exactly.
That option does not exist.
It
doesn't exist.
And
for sure.
And around about that time, even a former colleague of mine had also approached me with another opportunity as well from a different company, but I'd already agreed to come back. And I'm like, okay, let's have a conversation in a year. And that's actually what led me to, and I want to hear your thoughts about this. I said, where my current thoughts on this is that the worst thing you can do is for your direct boss to be the only person that knows how good you are.
Yeah.
Because if things go south for that company, no matter how good you are, he's going to choose you before he chooses himself, in terms of retrenching and whatever else. So, and it's one of the things that I try to do with LinkedIn and whatever, is connecting to people like that and getting to know them. And, and I mean, it's been weird because I hardly ever talk about my work. I talk about my career. But the unintended consequence is that job offers start coming.
Correct.
They're like, we really like the way you think. Would you consider this role? Would you do this? I've had a recruiter come back to me twice in the space of a week and like, would you really reconsider? I really think you would be amazing at this. But it was like within the 2 or 3 weeks of me getting back to the company that I'm working on, I'm like, listen, this lady has really done me a solid. I can't do that. you know. And again, you come back and you realize, oh, clearly there's something that I value, because they were like, it doesn't matter what you're making, we'll double it. Like, you don't even know what I'm making.
Yo,
Yeah.
they want you. They want you. Yeah.
You know, but that's one of the things that, and I really like the way that you phrased it in terms of building up that foundation early on in your career. Don't actually pursue the money. Build the proper foundation. Build the skill set. Build this, because ultimately that becomes your backup plan as you actually get it.
Yeah.
Exactly, that becomes your cash cow. Where now, I think it's Jordan Peter, especially even in terms of negotiating. You know, negotiating your way through, even within the organization, where. And I've seen this happen more than once and in more than one company. When the company knows that you don't have other options, the negotiating goes differently to when they know that you've got other options.
Yes.
You know, they know you've got no leverage. You're like, dude, whether we're giving you an increase of 5% or 10%, you're not going anywhere. Exactly.
You will take it.
So how would you actually advise? Because I think you really do it quite well in terms of navigating your way within an organization, but also finding an exit out. How would you actually advise someone to actually build that network where people can actually know about your skill set? They come to know about you. They're willing to give you those offers. They're willing to give you those nuggets of information that would really move your career forward.
Yeah. So first and foremost, that is important. Like you said.
Yeah,
you have to have that, and I think it's even tougher to say in a context like South Africa, where the unemployment rate is so high, and especially some of us, you come from not having money, or there's always at a time maybe only 2 people employed, let alone in the professional sector for a JSE listed company like some of us are. So I understand the insecurity that we come with, but you have to just think about it again logically. Like you said, you broke it down very nicely. It's not just in an employee-employer relationship. Even in business, when we sell whatever we're selling, when you know they're considering a couple of other options, other companies, and it's down to price or whatever, you know they have leverage. So your negotiating power decreases and there's increases, and you have to find what power might you have. It could be on the technical side to know that, oh, this is the only company, we're the only company that can do this. So you stay there and you go negotiate. Life is about negotiation, give and take. That's it. We shouldn't be insecure or sad or embarrassed to mention that fact. That's the first point. You have to understand that that's important. You have to build your own leverage. You have to understand it.
Yes.
How I would advise someone to do it. I mean, obviously, we have an amazing platform like LinkedIn. I also build my leverage off of LinkedIn, really. The how part is really where, again, this idea of self-knowledge comes to play once again. For me, I knew what I was good at, you understand? And I always try to use, we call it, in sales, a unique selling value proposition or unique selling point. You have, again, in any negotiation, that's what sets you apart. That's what gives you leverage. So it's not any different in an employee-employer relationship. I'll give you something very similar. One of the first things I used when I got to BCX, I was in this leadership program, right? So we were bouncing around everywhere. The other 6 guys that were recruited with me were very much IT focused guys, so they love technology and all those things. And they studied, IT related courses and stuff. I studied accounting. So I have a brain for numbers. I went into sales. So, okay, how can I flip that and use all of that? At the time, I couldn't use everything, but none of them know numbers. So, all right, attach myself to, a chief of the IT division. And I was like, let me do your revenue modeling. Let me do some analytics on how your opportunities, just give you some numbers that are not even that hard to do, like your close rates and all these things. Let me report back to you weekly. You understand what I'm saying? So unique value proposition, and I went in on that. And then And then just like in any like selling environment, marketing comes with it. The LinkedIn side is the marketing arm. So you have to understand what's at your disposal. Again, you can get very creative. If you're someone who belongs to a number of clubs, let's say Black Business Council or this or that, those are platforms you can market yourself on. So you might not even be 100% on LinkedIn. Use those platforms, right? If you have reading clubs or whatever, market yourself there. Those friends could be working somewhere, blah, blah, blah. The possibilities are endless. And also it's about personality type, right? What are you most comfortable with and in? For example, you could be a writer, write a blog, right? You understand what I'm saying? There's so many things you can use and levers, but you have to find them, and they only come once you introspect. Those of us who do it well are those who've introspected. You understand how to market yourself, how to do, like when I was at BCX, I pretty much did 2 jobs, for most of my time there because of my speaking ability, So in an IT environment, enterprise IT environment, the marketing team there is very different to, let's say, a marketing team in the FMCG space, right? Fast-moving consumable goods, because they are selling straight to consumer. That's a different marketer than someone who's selling to an enterprise. So my style, my flair was more, very much selling to people. I could do that. I could speak. Imagine speaking, coming from doing speeches in high school to talk about very serious stuff, to all of a sudden I'm emceeing the sales, conference. But what did that do? In another context, that was literally what I was selling. Let's say in my time as tax and tax chairperson, that's what I sold. I was employed pretty much to talk to students and motivate them and do these things. Here, I'm paid for something else. I use that as the marketing arm. Simply because I went back to the toolbox. What do I have? And I'll give people a tip as well to show you how you can use absolutely anything. One of the things that I've also built from a personal brand point of view, and it helps because it's something I enjoy, right? Like I enjoy fashion and I enjoy clothes. So I dressed up from, even when I was an intern, earning, how much was I earning my first job? 5,000-7,000 Rand. I found ways to buy blazers and even though I had like 3 or whatever, but I wore those things until they were worn out, but I wore a blazer every single day. That was part of my brand, you understand? And I knew how to do it. So I could, make these very cool anti-corporate looks that gets people to notice you. Hey, what's going on? Again, marketing. You understand what I'm saying? That's marketing. So BCX, I did the same thing. Now I have a little bit more money, so now I can do it better, Marketing improves, you understand? And then you sprinkle the speaking on top of that, and so it's all about, you need to get very creative about it. That's really all I would say. There's no one way, and the context matters. Again, I'll give you another example, because it's very important for us to contextualize. When you look at now, when I joined Altron, for example, and it's part of the reasons why I haven't posted so much, or because I was also trying to figure out a new strategy, because I did the emceeing sales conference stuff at BCX. I know I can do that. I showed you I can do that. I know it works. But you also don't want to get to the territory, especially now as I've hit another goal in my career, where I have to now be also smart of how I use that. Because what can happen is you can now be labeled a show pony, right? Because it's cool when I'm 25 doing those stuff, but I can't be 40 doing the same thing. You understand what I'm saying? It has a completely different impact. So I now have to go, I have that skill, but how do I plug it in this new environment? So you have to be always changing and creative on how you're going to use your brand and your skill set to stand out. But the fact of the matter is you have to do it, because like you said, that gives you leverage, and it also gives you different levers to pull. It gives you different value points, because another company could come let's say they just wanted me for a marketing gig, we liked what you did there, blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, that's a new opportunity that you weren't even intending to. So you have to give yourself leverage. You have to give yourself different value points. And you have to market it, because you can have it, but if we don't know about it,
doesn't happen.
Nothing happens.
Yeah.
So find ways to tell your story and share yourself. It could just be in the confines of, or in the four walls of your company. Find ways to do it. A good one, like I just said, you could be the guy who dresses like this, or who always, you don't even have to mix it up. You could be the guy who always wears a black suit. That could say something about your character. Say you are very methodic and like, look at Zuckerberg. His gray t-shirt is a brand now, and they often ask them in interviews, and they'll tell you, like, I think Elon Musk said it, where they said, or Steve Jobs, where they said, they don't like spending decision making power on something as trivial as clothes. That's a completely different interpretation, but look at even what it does from a brand point of view. So it all comes from, I couldn't do that, right? Because it's not who I am. I hate wearing the same outfit, even, I like mixing it up. So it all comes from being true to yourself, going within yourself and finding as many value points as possible. And if you don't have them, like you told your friend the one time, go get them, study. Me reading and doing all these things gave me so many other value points. You understand? And I was just doing that for my enjoyment and all these things. But now I can speak on politics in a very eloquent manner. And these things start to overlap, because even when I was doing these talks, I could have easily been, it's one of the things that I was very intentional about, for example, to say, I'm not just going to come here and be your MC. I'm going to find a way to show you my business acumen while on that stage, introducing a speaker. I'm going to find a way to show you how sharp I am in that little 2 minutes while I'm on there. But that can only happen because I've input so much into my arsenal. I can't make that up on stage. I had to have read those books all those times ago. Then once that platform comes, I can then still find ways to integrate all of my value propositions, or as many as I can, in one. Because look at just me emceeing. I'm giving you so much of my value. One, how I dress. So I'm gonna give you that. I'm gonna give you my speaking ability, which is really why I was put on the stage. But then I'm gonna give you my knowledge, on politics and business and my viewpoints on life, all in one. And that also happens to be a marketing avenue. But they still work on top of that, because I must get that footage or that picture and market it on my own, because you can't delegate that task. You have to take ownership and market it repeatedly. And you must then protect that and not do things that are contrary to that brand, because it diminishes it. So you must also then take that responsibility. You can't, on one day you're posting about all these books, and then the absolute next day you putting in something that's completely different and hurting the brand. It confuses us and it diminishes your credibility. And that's where I find also a lot of young professionals don't want to take responsibility. Like, all of these things count. You can't want to be this person or say you want to achieve these things, but even the way you carry yourself in the office, it says something different. You're leaving early, or even if it's you're allowed to, but people notice all these things, or you're too loud, you're joking around, you are inappropriate, you are, and I look on your LinkedIn, also more inappropriate jokes. The brand cannot be confused. So there's a lot of work that comes to it. That goes into it, but I would say, really take care of those elements: your unique value proposition, your sales and marketing strategy, and then being consistent across both of those things. And of course, adding more selling opportunities or selling propositions as you go along in your career, and some of them might need to be dropped because of the context of where you are and what you want to achieve. So it's a lot of work, man, but it's really more thought than anything else, because if you do it right, you don't need to feel any pressure, because you're not faking it. You're just being very deliberate about what you're doing and how you're choosing to move and navigate your world. That's it. It's really not any more complicated than that, if you ask me.
That's amazing. Just my last question.
Yeah.
You are given absolute power over South Africa. And whatever you want to happen happens in an instant. So not only is your power absolute, you're also omnipotent. Whatever happens, you've got magical powers. But you can only fix 3 things in South Africa, and it cannot benefit you personally. What would those 3 things be?
They cannot benefit me directly. Okay.
So you can't just say, I want all the money in the Reserve Bank.
Yeah. So for me, I think the first thing that I would like to change, and that I'm sad I don't think we're there yet, is just national unity, right? Just literally from the point of, we acknowledge the past, it happened, these are the consequences, kind of like what the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was really trying to do. But we are holding hands and moving forward from here. However, it's not going to be perfect, but however best way we can. So national unity, just on a people level, I would fix that. That would be my dream. And then number 2, it would really be in fixing what I think was possibly the greatest injustice of kind of our past, which was really the complete erosion of our sense of self and self-confidence. I'm very big on that. As I said, for me, things changed exponentially when I really started to believe without anyone's permission that anything is possible, so because I think you cannot change a problem of this magnitude, because you think about how many people are in South Africa and how bad the situation is. You look at the unemployment rate, numbers close to or north of 50% is nuts, right? No one policy can change that. No one policy can change that. And I think guys like us and people like myself, I know I didn't get here by just being smart or whatever. It really, and I still acknowledge, though, especially the times that we are in and how fortunate we are, and I am, but my sense of self and worth enabled me to create value, because it's also not a favor. I've created value for everywhere that I've been, you understand? So I would like to magically instill in all the kids, from flipping kukule to Venda or Nelspruit, just a high sense of self that no matter what I see around me, I can do whatever, really, that almost crazy sense of self. So that's the second thing I'll change. And I think between those 2 things, it would really solve a lot. And then the last thing I would change, if I had a magic wand, I would fix all the potholes in South Africa. I just got a puncture the other day. I nearly lost my mind. So I'll just magically fix all the potholes forever and ever and ever. That would make me extremely happy. I think we do those 3 things, we have a perfect country.
Absolutely. Sure. I think the third one would definitely get you a Nobel Prize. And the UN would come and ask you how you did it.
How I did it. No, 100%. Number 3 is most important.
Yeah, no, man, Phila, this was amazing. I really, really enjoyed it. I think you shared so much. Like, even I learned a lot. Like, even I was looking at this, I'm like, oh, I need to go through that again. I really appreciate this, and I enjoyed this. I would be honored to have this sit down again with you at a later stage.
Anytime. Anytime, brother, anytime. I'm a sucker for great conversation, and the work you are doing is absolutely amazing. Like, we see you, and keep pushing, because we need it, man. We need to again coach each other and bounce off each other, and the platform you're creating as well for conversation is absolutely amazing. So I'm blessed and humbled to be invited, and I'm anytime, hopefully in the future, I'll have some more stuff to share. But man, we appreciate you, brother.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, bro.
Take care, G.